Is it almost midnight? Yes. Am I in my pajamas? Yes. Is my hair thrown up in a nasty, disgusting clip? Yes. But are we going to talk about what I read in July and what I'm planning to read in August? You betcha. Hey guys, we are finally back with another one. I feel like it's been a while since I've filmed, but it really hasn't been. Basically, even though it is so late, I am so exhausted, I'm in my pajamas, we are going to go ahead and get this wrap up done. We're going to talk about what I read in July. We're also going to talk about what I'm reading in August, because for the first time, I'm kind of sort of not doing a TBR list. I guess I am, but not in the classical TBR sense. So before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the books that I read in July. So I'm not really going to go super in depth about these, because if you watched the last video that was on my channel, I talked about how I read for 24 hours, and a lot of those books honestly are kind of what I read in July. July has been a crazy busy month for me. I haven't exactly had a ton of time to sit and read in like straight long periods of time. So I'm not doing a ton of independent reading. So a lot of the books that I read were for that video. So I'm just going to go through those really quickly. And if you're interested more in depth of what I thought, or the more of the details of the book, go ahead and watch the 24-hour reading video that I posted not too long ago. So the first book that I jumped into in July was Shipped by Angie Hockman. Let me pull up my Goodreads so I can get my actual ratings for these. Hold, please. Okay. So this book, basically the general gist of it is this girl she works for a travel agency, specifically like a adventure cruise travel agency, and she's up for a promotion. So she goes on this trip for her company to try to do some marketing research for this promotion, and the man who is also competing for the same promotion goes up on the trip with them too, to the Galapagos Islands, and the story evolves from there. This book was really cute. Like, there was really honestly nothing wrong with it. It did drag a little bit. It was a little bit slow. I actually gave it a 2.75 stars, rounded up to 3 stars on Goodreads. And I know that sounds really harsh, but I feel like my rating system, I say this in every single video where I give ratings, my rating system's a little bit different. Like, for me, a 2.5 out of 5 stars is like quite literally mathematically perfectly average. It's just a good average, nothing's great but nothing's bad book. This was a 2.75 stars, so it was just slightly above perfectly average. There's absolutely nothing in this book that's going to stick with me long term. It's nothing that I'm going to go and talk to my husband about, or tell my whole family about, or call all my friends and send them copies and rave about them reading this. It was perfectly average. On my Goodreads, I said, unfortunately, there was a couple of things that kind of really didn't do it for me. And I basically said it had a lot of pacing issues. And I also remember when I was reading this book, the one thing that really turned me off to this book is the female main character in this book was quite possibly one of the most selfish main characters I've ever read. I'm not going to say too much about it, but this girl, like, she lacked the ability to literally think about anybody else or consider anybody else. It was just me. How does this affect me? What do I want to do? How am I going to handle this? How's this going to go for me? It was just, and it really did get just like emotionally and mentally exhausting reading in that perspective for a while. So I think that was one of the things that really brought this down a couple of stars ratings for me, is that I just genuinely disliked the female main character for like most of the book. So I did say that. She's childish, indecisive, confusing, rude, and selfish beyond belief. And I think that kind of just sums it up. She makes bad decisions and she treats people like absolute garbage. But the storyline was decent. I did like the cruise element. I thought that was a really unique, like the Galapagos Islands on an adventure cruise. I thought that was a cool concept, but nothing that's really going to stick with me long term. 2.75 stars. It was cute. Moving on. Oh boy. I think this one could get a little controversial, but controversy is good, guys. Okay. Like, part of what makes reading and life in general fun is that we all have different opinions on things, and we can disagree and we can debate and have conversation about things. So before I get into this, I know it's going to be a little bit of a hot take. I think I do have a different opinion than a lot of people do on this book, but I want to hear you in the comments down below. How am I wrong? Like, if you loved this book, tell me. I want to hear about it because I know so many people do. So I'm going to stop stalling. I'm just going to get right into it. The next book I read was Ricochet by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the second book in the Addicted Callaway series, and I gave this book a 2-star. A 2-star. I know, and I know that so many people are going to probably come for me because I think, like, I'm being serious. This might be a me problem. That's why I want to hear about it, because I think that this is a lot of people's favorite book in the entire Addicted Callaway series. I hear so many people talking about Ricochet and how much they loved it. I was so bummed by this book. I was just so disappointed. And before we get into like the details, like, I'm absolutely moving on with the series. This isn't keeping me from moving on. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I did really like Addicted to You, which was the first book. I think I gave that like a 4-point-something stars when I read it. And this one is typically people's favorites, and most people say that Addicted to You is underwhelming. I'm flip-flopped. I liked Addicted to You. This book irritated the crap out of me. I just did not like it. This was a below average book for me. I'm not going to rant and rave too much because I did that in the last video. The basic gist of why I didn't like this is that I literally don't like any of the characters in this book and in this series, to be honest with you, except for Lo. Point blank period. I just can't stand them. Lily irritates me. Rose is horrible. Connor's a sniveling little weasel. Reich is beyond creepy. He's just a creep. I'm not going to get into it. Daisy has no supervision. She is just reckless. And no one looks out for her. So I guess I could have a little sympathy for Daisy since she is like a literal 16-year-old girl. Like, she's a child. We're not even going to get into that storyline. Like, I don't even want to know if I want to know what happens in that area of the story, because I was beyond skeeved out in this book with her parts. Yeah. 2 stars. Ricochet. Didn't like it. I would love to hear your opinions down below. Please tell me either I'm absolutely insane and this book is amazing and I totally missed it and I don't understand, psychoanalyze the characters for me because I don't get it. Or if I'm not crazy, tell me below. Tell me that you didn't like this book, but Ricochet, 2 stars. Not my favorite. Okay. So then the next book I went into, I want to make sure I keep this in order. Okay, good. So then the next book I went into was The Risk, which is the first book in the Mind F series. This book was good. You want to know what cracks me up? In the last video, just like out of force of habit, I kept going, this was cute. This book was cute. It cracked me up because, like, if you've read the Mind F series, it's like really nothing cute about it. It's kind of like not a cute book. I just, out of force of habit, kept calling it cute. This book is not cute. It's not. It has a good romance element, a little bit of spice. There wasn't too much spice in the first one. I think it gets spicier. This is a 5-book series, by the way. But this book is about a female serial killer who basically starts up in a little fling with the FBI detective that's investigating the crimes she's committed. Obviously, he doesn't know it's her, but she is the one who's perpetrating the crimes that he's investigating, and they start up a little fling. It's a cool book. It's really good. I want to look up what I gave it. I gave it a 3.5 rounded up to 4 stars on Goodreads. I did like it. The storyline was really, really interesting. I've never read anything like it. It's really unique. I did like the romance. It was slightly insta-lovey for me, which is fine. I'm not actually someone who despises insta-love. Like, it's not my favorite because it's unrealistic, but like, I'm not the kind of person that like it'll automatically ruin a book for her. Was a little insta-lovey. On my Goodreads, I said the pros were that it was a quick, short read. It kept me interested. It was an interesting romance. It had decent spice. The cons were, it was one of, oh yeah, it was like a thriller. I remember saying this in my last video too. It was one of those thrillers where it just feels like unrealistic in that she could do anything and she's just going to get away with it. Like, she's never going to get caught. She could just do anything. And if you watched my last video, I kind of compared it to how I felt about like the last seasons of Breaking Bad. And if anybody agrees with me, let me know. But it was good. 3.5 stars, rounded up. Perfectly fine. So, the next book I went into was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book has taken the book community, the internet, everything by storm. TikTok, I think. I don't have TikTok, but it's taken social media by storm. This book is a 6-star read for me. I am so excited for Iron Flame, which I believe comes out at the beginning of November. I am so excited for Iron Flame. This book is stunning. It's amazing. And you know what? It was one of those books that I loved so much. I randomly opened up my YouTube one day and there was just this random recommended video about this girl who hated this book, who said it was one of the worst books ever written. And I love this book so much that I clicked on it and I had to read it. I have not seen one, in my opinion, legitimate criticism about this book that I could go like, oh, okay, yeah, like I could see that. All right. Just difference of opinion. No. This book is stunning. It's beautiful. I love it. Everything about it. The storyline was great. The characters were great. I thought the writing was great. I think the writing is getting the most criticism. The dialogue was great. It had a little bit of spice. Like it wasn't too much. It's definitely spicy at parts, but not like every single chapter. In fact, I think you get like over 3/4 of the way through the book before there's any spice at all. But basically, if you haven't read Fourth Wing, this book is about a girl who is attending a war college. And at this war college, there's a couple of different like categories that you could go into, like the scribes who basically run essentially like the archives, the library for the war college. And you would be in charge of like collecting and preserving the history of this realm. You could go into healing, I believe is one of them, where you obviously, just like the name implies, you're kind of like the medical type potion makers of this book. And then you could go into dragon riding, which is what this girl ends up getting sorted into as a dragon rider. I'm not going to give too many details away, but it is gorgeous. I actually also think that if you're not a super heavy fantasy reader, you could still get into this. It's essentially like with the school and the dragons and the magical realm and stuff like that. It's like a Harry Potter, but more adult and more high stakes. So it's beautiful. Read it. If you have not read Fourth Wing and you sit there and you see all the hype on the internet and you're like, I don't know, like for me, hype sometimes ruins books. That was not the case here. This is so good. Read this book. It's so good. I have 2 copies. I have this one and then I have the first edition one. That's kind of my pride and joy and it's over with my collection. So it's beautiful. I loved it. 6 stars. I can already tell you this is going to be one of my top books of the year. So read it. So good. All right. And then after that, I went into Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is going to be hands down the hardest book for me to describe my feelings on. Because throughout reading this book, I vacillated between really, really liking it and not so sure I liked it. And I don't think I've ever had a book that I kind of was so polarized in my feelings about. Like throughout the book, I just like so much of me just couldn't figure out how I felt about this book. But at the end of the day, I gave it a 3.5 stars rounded down to a 3 stars on Goodreads. Basically, if you don't know really quickly what this book is about a man who actually, his name is Ryland Grace, but he doesn't even know that. When he wakes up with no memory and no knowledge of what happened to him, he just randomly wakes up and finds that he is on a ship in space and has no recollection as to how he got there, why he's there, who he was there with. And basically the book follows him trying to put together the pieces of why he's in space, what he's supposed to be doing while he's in space, who is supposed to be there with him or isn't supposed to be there with him, who he is. It is a very interesting concept, and it was my first sci-fi. So part of the reason why I struggled a little bit might be that this was just my first foray into the genre. So maybe it just takes a little while to like get your feet really firmly established in the genre, but I vacillated, like I said, between loving this book and not liking this book. I really liked the main character. I did love the character Rocky. I really, really loved Rocky. And I liked their friendship. But the writing, I think, is where this book got a little bogged down for me. And like I said in my last video, I went more in depth. But basically, parts of this book felt like you were sitting in a college level classroom for like an astrophysics lecture. And there would be straight up pages that I just struggled with. And it wasn't even so much that I had trouble understanding it, because they do summarize it and they do explain it to you. But I just so much of it I didn't enjoy. But like I said, I gave it a 3.5 stars. If you are a huge sci-fi fan, I think that you would probably jump into this and love it, and you might even enjoy some of the science talk and some of the space talk and the physics talk and the astronomical talk and things like that. And maybe that would be for you. But if you are like me and you don't read a ton of science fiction, I would love to hear your thoughts on this when you read it. This might not be the best introduction to the genre, but it was really good. It was cute. Okay, so with that being said, that is what I read in July. Now let's jump forward into what I am going to be reading for August. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this month. Typically, I pick either a bunch of books from one genre or I ask people for suggestions for what I'm going to read, but I was sitting back trying to figure out how I was going to come up with what I read in August, and there are so many books on my bookshelves that I could pick up right now and devour. So many. I mean, even to the point where, like, I would love to jump into the Throne of Glass series. I would love to jump into so many books, but my hesitation is that I am getting very hung up on the fact that I am in the middle of so many series. And one thing that you will want to learn about me is that I do not have a super long-standing memory. In fact, I think my memory kind of borders on short-term memory. Like, I don't have a great long-term memory. And if I get too far removed from a book, like if it has been too long since I've read it, I will not be able to tell you anything about that book. Anything. I won't be able to tell you the characters. I kind of start remembering the plot as I like talk about it, but there's so many main points of the plot that will just become giant holes in my memory. And right now I'm in the middle of so many series that I'm actually frozen because I feel like I can't pick up another book that's a part of a series if I don't make at least some progress, if not finish, the series that I'm already in. I want to pick up Throne of Glass so badly, but I can't do it because I'm so afraid that I'm going to get so involved in those series that I'm going to forget all the rest of the stuff that I've already read. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make August my month where I move forward, if not finish, a bunch of the series I'm in the middle of. So let's talk about where we're going to go. So as we currently sit here, it just flipped over to August 5th. It was August 4th when I started, but it's August 5th now. So it is August 5th, and I've already finished my first book of August before I filmed this video, and I jumped into The Score by Elle Kennedy. This is the third book in the Off-Campus series. If you don't know, Elle Kennedy wrote a series called the Off-Campus series, and then there's another kind of like shoot off to this series called the Briar U series. It's pretty large, but this is the third book, and I already did finish this. So one book from my TBR down. I finished the third book in the Off-Campus series, so I made some progress there. Then here are the other books I pulled off my shelf that are currently series I'm in the middle of that we continue in this. No particular order. Just these are the series I want to make some progress in this month. So the next book is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is the second in, I don't know if there's gonna be any more books in this series, but I know so far it's a duology. The first book is called It Happened Last Summer, and it followed, I forget what her first name is, but it followed our female main character, Piper. Her first name's Piper. I told you, if it's been too long since I've read it, it takes me a second to remember details, but it follows our female main character, Piper, moving to this small fishing town and meeting a grumpy fishing captain named Brendan, and how their story progresses. That was It Happened Last Summer, the first book in this series. Hook, Line, and Sinker is the second book in what is a duology, at least at this point. And this is going to follow Piper's sister and Brendan's best friend, Fox. So I could, at some point in this month, pick this up. I think I'm probably going to commit to reading this because I feel like that'll be a really good sense of accomplishment, because once I finish this, I'm done with that portion. So that would be one series I've finished. I could also pick up The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. I did read The Housemaid, which is the first book in this duology, in April while I was at my family's place in the Cape. So It's a thriller, so I like that it'll kind of break up my genre as well. And I basically think if you haven't read The Housemaid, the first book, it's about a woman who goes to clean a home and be a housemaid in this rich couple's home, and things go awry, right? Like, I'm not going to give away too much, but I have no clue what happens in this book. I'm assuming it's just going to continue on with the housemaid story. So I could pick up The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. The next book I could go into is Addicted for Now by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the third book in the Addicted Calloway series. I have no idea whose book this is. I think it's still going to follow, it's still going to follow Lillian Lowe. I don't know if they're going to go into anybody else's story in this book. I guess not. I guess it's still Lillian Lowe. So this is, like I said, the third book. I did read Addicted for You and then Ricochet last month. So I could continue on with the series and find out where Lily and Lo go from there, after Ricochet and their point in the story. I don't know. We'll see. Addicted for Now. Okay. I could also pick up The Wicked King by Holly Black. This one will take some serious fortitude for me, because I did not like The Cruel Prince at all. I hated it. I really didn't like it. It was, I don't know, to me, boring. So, okay, so there's kind of a little bit of a backstory here, which maybe I went into The Cruel Prince. I would kind of be willing to say that I went into The Cruel Prince with the wrong mindset, because I actually picked up The Cruel Prince thinking it was Brutal Prince. But, oh, that's interesting. Okay. Like a rat tail for half the video, and you weren't going to tell me? No one was going to tell me? Anyways, hopefully he minds his business. But basically, I picked up The Cruel Prince thinking and meaning to pick up Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. So if you know both of these books, you could literally not pick two different books. Cruel Prince is fantasy, not romantasy. We'll get into that in a second. It is straight up fantasy. And Brutal Prince is like straight up like mafia romance. And that's what I meant to pick up. I went to Barnes & Noble one day and screwed up and picked up The Cruel Prince. And I was like 3/4 of the way into this fantasy Cruel Prince before I went, do I have the right book? What mafia? Like, what romance? Like, I was so confused. So I think maybe I was just in the wrong mindset for The Cruel Prince, because it wasn't actually the book that I thought I was reading. But the other reason why The Cruel Prince turned me off is, do not let anyone tell you that that book is a romantasy. I don't understand the romance. If it's supposed to be a romance, I don't get it. But I didn't love it. So this book has been sitting on my shelf forever, and I have never once felt inclined to pick it up. Not one time. I literally go right by it, don't ever think about picking it up, because it doesn't appeal to me. And I have heard that The Wicked King gets a little bit better. So if I'm feeling about dipping my toes into fantasy, I could try at least to pick up The Wicked King, but I'm not super excited for this one, so we'll see. I could also go into Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I don't know if you would actually consider this like part of a series, because I think technically these are interconnected standalones. However, that counts to me, because if it deals in the same universe with the same characters, that's part of what I don't want to forget and why I want to progress in it. So this is the, I guess, like, I don't want to say it's the second book because it's not a series, but this is the interconnected book to Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. It deals with the same characters in the same world. So I could also do Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I've heard really good things about this. I've heard there's anxiety representation, which is cool. And there's a dog on the cover, so that kind of sells me. So I really, really enjoy Abby Jimenez's writing. I feel like it goes really quick and I can read it in a relatively good amount of time. So I could dabble in a little bit of Abby this month. Similarly, I could pick up The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. Just like Yours Truly, I wouldn't say this is part of like an actual series. It's more of an interconnected standalone. This is the follow-up book to Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. So once again, similar vein. It's in the same universe, in the same world. It has kind of like interconnected characters and stuff like that. So I did really, really love Mr. Wrong Number. I do remember really liking the characters, loving the banter. I feel like Lynn Painter is like a banter queen. And it was a lot of text messages. So I eat stuff up. I love text messages in books. I don't know why. And I'm flipping through and I'm not seeing a ton of text messages in this book, but it's short. I feel like it's not that long. Yeah, it's under 300 pages, so I probably could go ahead and pick up The Love Wager and close this universe of interconnected standalones as well. Okay, so this book right here, As Good as It Gets, is the third book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and this is actually going to be the book I pick up next. I am so excited because I read these books so quickly. I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and Good Girl Bad Blood, which is the second book, so quickly. They're so easy to read. You really, really do just get enmeshed with the story. And I feel like another controversial opinion from me is that I actually liked the second one, Good Girl Bad Blood, more than A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I liked the sequel better. So I'm really excited because this book has a lot of differing opinions. Some people really liked it. Some people said it fell flat. So this is actually going to be the book I pick up next. I'm really excited to dive back into Pippa's world because I really like it. So that's going to happen. Okay. I also could jump into Collided. This is the second book in the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher. I did read Throttled in my Creators Pick Your Reading List video. I really, really liked it. This book, this series, at least Throttled for me, was very character driven. My interest in the book was mostly that I did like the story between Noah and Maya. This does center on an F1 racing environment and an F1 racing world. The main male characters are F1 racers, and I've got to be honest with you, I didn't really care about that part of the storyline. It didn't interest me. I know nothing about F1 racing. I actually don't like racing very much. It didn't do anything to like negatively impact the book, but there was some like racing talk in Throttled that I kind of just like honestly kind of skimmed past, or just, you know, in one ear and out the other. I didn't really pay attention to it, but the characters really did hold the book together for me. So I'm excited to get back into the Dirty Air series because I really, really do love Lauren Asher's writing. I have the Fine Print series that I've wanted to jump into too, but I'm not because I want to finish Dirty Air before I jump into Fine Print. So I think this might be one of my next reads as well. Last but not least, I could pick up Things We Hide from the Light by Miss Lucy Score. I read Things We Never Got Over in my Creators Pick Your Books video, and I really, really loved it. These books are so chunky. Lucy Score's books are thick, but I loved it. I ate up Things We Never Got Over. I think I gave it a 4.5 stars, I believe. And I did love the Knock 'em Out like world. They're in Knock 'em Out, Virginia. That's the town. And I really did like the world. I know in the first one, the main male character turned me off a little bit because he was grumpy and kind of a rude, controlling, overbearing way that I don't love, but he kind of redeemed himself and grew on me at the end. So I know that this one follows his brother, I believe Nash. I think this is Nash's book. Yes, Nash's book. And not only is Nash a police officer, and I live for that, but I believe he's not quite as grumpy. So I'm wondering if I'm going to connect to Nash's story more, because Knox did knock the first book down a couple of points for me. So I could do that. Okay guys, and that's it. That is what I read in July and what I kind of the directions I could go into in August. I'm so excited to kind of check off some boxes of the series that I'm reading, and mostly I'm excited to feel free to move on to other series as well, because just my brain won't let me do it. So I really, really hope that I clean up and like trim some of the fat, clean up some of like what I feel like I've kind of slacked on a little bit. But actually, as I was going through these books and looking at them, I realized how invested I was in a lot of the characters in these books and these series. And I'm feeling this like intense excitement to kind of fall back into the world and see how they progress and what happens with them. So the more and more I look at this stack, I'm getting more and more excited. So like I said, I already finished the first one. Let's see how this goes. Just knocking some series off of my list. So that's it for tonight. I think I'm ready to go and relax. Maybe pick up, I think I'm going to pick up As Good as It Gets next and read that. Or what is it? As Good as It Gets. As Good as Dead next. And start reading that. I think I'm going to bang out a couple of chapters, but go ahead. Do all of the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and if you're feeling particularly generous, go ahead and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.